Whispers of the Forgotten Christmas. Chapter 1. The Silent Echoes. I stepped onto the familiar dirt path, the crunching of leaves underfoot the only sound breaking the silence as I approached our family's old cabin. The trees stood tall and still in the darkness, their branches reaching towards the moon like skeletal fingers. As an adult, it seemed ridiculous that I was returning here for Christmas after all these years. Yet something compelled me back to this place where childhood memories, both warm and cold, lingered in every creak of the wooden walls. It had been since grandfather's passing, 10 long years ago, that my family avoided coming back, opting instead for a festive holiday at home or some distant resort. But I needed closure. The traumatic event on one fateful Christmas Eve still clung to me like a festering scar. A chill ran down my spine as the cabin came into view. Shadows danced along its facade in the pale moonlight, their fluid movements unnerving. Whispering voices carried on the wind, a soft susurrus that sounded almost human, yet sent shivers down my spine. In the stillness of night, I couldn't ignore them. The door creaked open with a familiar groan as I pushed it wide, stepping inside into an eerie silence that was both comforting and unsettling. Dust coated every surface, as though time had stood still within these walls since I left. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I noticed an envelope on the wooden table. Addressed to me, a tremble took hold of my fingers as I opened it, revealing a hand that scrawled note that made no sense. For when you return, Alex, we'll be waiting. The paper felt cold in my hands as though kissed by frost. Shivers coursed through me. Who could have left this? We never came here anymore, and the last time I saw grandfather alive was on a Christmas Eve long past. Curiosity propelled me to explore every room with an unsteady gait, each floorboard protesting my presence. In the sitting room, something odd caught my eye. An old album filled with yellowed photographs. Each page turned revealed snapshots of our family gatherings. But they weren't quite right. The faces were different people. I blinked hard. It couldn't be. Yet there they stood amidst laughter and holly, their smiles incongruous with the unfamiliarity of them. A floorboard groaned behind me. Swiveling, heart in my throat, I faced an empty space. Perhaps exhaustion from the long drive had played tricks on my senses. Another look at those photographs. A boy with a red coat, playing by the tree. The image was unmistakable, yet he couldn't have been there that night. His face wasn't familiar. A door creaked in a room far above. I ascended the ladder to discover a loft cluttered with dusty trunks and suitcases, one of which had fallen over. Lifting it revealed a journal belonging to my father. The cover bore the year 91, our last Christmas here before grandfather's passing. Inside, notes spoke of an unsettling figure seen in the forest at dusk, dressed in red, who watched from afar. I recognized that same boy with the coat. My fingers traced the page as if searching for answers. The journal fell to my side, and I stood up sharply. Footsteps thudded overhead, coming closer. A door slammed shut on the main floor, followed by silence. Heart pounding in my chest, I ventured down to find the cabin locked and bolted from within. Each window closed and curtains drawn. The unmistakable scent of pine carried with it a hint of smoke. Crouching before the fireplace, embers still smoldered despite having arrived at nightfall. Flames danced with a rhythmic intensity as though stirred by an unseen hand. A sudden gust forced open a window high above, blowing in frosty air and ruffling my hair. Shadows crept along the walls, twisting into unnatural shapes that seemed to move on their own. I tried not to believe it, but couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched from outside those very windows. Suddenly, a figure darted past the glass. a flash of red before vanishing into the night. I rose, my eyes straining through the darkness. The cabin's musty smell intensified with each breath as I approached the window. A figure in a crimson coat hung precariously from a branch outside. For a moment, he gazed down at me, and our eyes locked. Then, they vanished into the trees, leaving only an echo of their presence. Whispers carried on the wind that now sounded more like laughter. The door shook with a muffled thump. I grabbed for the iron handle, but found it locked from the other side. An unseasonable warmth enveloped me as I entered the sitting room. Smoke curled up through the chimney and mingled with the dust, carrying faint whispers on its tendrils. With fingers trembling, I set the fire to crackling life once more. A sense of peace settled over me in this place I'd long abandoned. But it was short that lived. A gust extinguished the flames, plunging us into darkness. The eerie cold enveloped me as the door slammed open. My breath caught when a figure emerged from the shadows. Tall and gaunt, clad in that red coat. His eyes were sunken, skin pale beneath taut features I'd once seen only on Christmas Eve, long ago. "What brings you back?" A raspy voice greeted me, sending shivers down my spine. "Old wounds? Or have wounds brought you here?" The figure drifted closer as I backed away to the fireplace, hands shaking over the brass ring handles. He spoke with an unnerving calmness that belied his skeletal appearance. His gaze bore into mine, a gaze reminiscent of grandfather's. In that moment, all these years felt too late for returning. I need closure," I managed to say, my voice barely audible. "This isn't a coincidence." The figure vanished into the night just as suddenly as it appeared. My skin prickled with goose flesh. An inexplicable sense of longing tugged me toward the loft where those photographs lay. Lifting the old album, something fell onto the page. A Polaroid photo from Christmas Eve '91. Grandfather stood there, arm around me, smiling, amidst a crowd I never recalled. Yet in this image, he wasn't alone. Another shadow loomed beside him, obscured by an enormous coat that seemed to glow crimson in the fading light. It was then I knew. Tonight would be a night of answers and unsettling revelations. Chapter 2. The Mismatched Memories. The album led me into the loft where memories mingled with dust and forgotten artifacts. As dusk approached, I delved deeper into our family's legacy, uncovering a past buried beneath decades that old layers of wood polish and neglect. In 1988, an image caught my breath. Christmas morning breakfast. Grandfather sat at the head of the table, but the faces were not what I remembered. A woman in red sipped a steaming mug, her eyes gleaming with a knowing light. I couldn't recall her from any holiday. Flicking through pages revealed a presence that shouldn't be there. Mother, father, and an unknown daughter. The woman who could have been my sister. The journal spoke of a secret kept hidden for too long, one of loss and love in equal measure. The room seemed to grow colder as I read on, each page exposing layers of our family's tale that had never reached me. Her name was Rosemary, grandfather's daughter, a story born from his own mouth during those silent nights by the fire, about a child who vanished beneath the tree and how he found her in '87. Alive for a single Christmas. I pored over each photograph, every image another piece of a riddle whose meaning escaped me. Shadows gathered at my window as night approached, dancing like they had that first fateful evening. Sleep, and hours later, a dream wrenched me from the loft to our tree's base. An evergreen adorned with ornaments, pulsing with life under flickering moonlight. In it stood Rosemary, her dress stained with crimson. I rose, unable to look away as she sang of a child yet to be found. A branch snapped behind me. A hand grasped my shoulder and spun me about. It was grandfather. His eyes held the weight of secrets as he spoke through clenched teeth. Please find Rosemary. In the heart of our tree, an ornament materialized. A little girl in white dress, suspended by roots I never knew had been there all along. Shivering beneath layers, I carried her down, and my world shifted. On the mantel, a locket displayed. Father's face on one side and mother's on the other, locked shut with an image of Rosemary within. My own eyes reflected from polished brass as I opened it. Inside was Rosemary, smiling. She wasn't found. She'd been here all along. The wind died outside. A figure in red stood before the tree. He beckoned me to follow him into night as if he were my guide now. In his wake, we traversed woods that should have frightened any man of 70.6. Rosemary lay beneath a canvas of branches where an ornament once hung. Beneath the girl's dress, mummified remains lay exposed to moonlight. I knelt among the skeletal remains, fingers brushing against her skin, cold but not unrecognizable as my own daughter. The figure in red stood above us, his eyes aglow with what could be both sorrow and longing. Rosemary, I whispered, please come home now. In a blinding flash of light, she was gone. Chapter 3. The Haunting Melody. Days became nights, the loft's mystery weaving itself into every moment. Rosemary whispered to me from dreams of love and loss, of an heirloom locket that bound us together. In darkness, I found it clutched by a crimson hand. The journal pages filled with cryptic messages. Unravel secrets, find her, they urged. Dusk had yet to arrive when grandfather's specter visited my dreams as well. The story he'd hidden for so long revealed itself in whispers that could have been his breath or wind. I ventured into woods that bore scars of a tragedy not spoken aloud. Inhaling deeply, I entered the forest. Shadows danced with an otherworldly light, dancing to unearth what had been buried beneath love and fear. As the sun hid behind trees, Rosemary emerged before me, her gown stained crimson, speaking in hushed tones of their story. Unbeknownst to them all, they'd made a little girl born under our tree on Christmas Eve '88. When you find the truth, a figure in the distance, my own doppelganger dressed in red, emerged from the heart of darkness. The wind died, leaving an eerie stillness. He came closer with each step until I saw the woman from the photographs, face painted with soot and hope. Please bring Rosemary home, she implored me on those final pages. She vanished into trees as the figure approached, a child's laughter trailing after them both. A gust of frigid air preceded him when he neared. His eyes were no longer grandfather's, but those I knew too well from dreams and waking moments. Your time has come, they said in an unsettling voice before disappearing back into the gloom. The journal revealed more. My mother had taken her own life within days of Rosemary's death, a secret that could destroy family and love alike. Love brought them together. Loss tore us apart on that fateful Christmas morning. A scream pierced the night as I watched a child stumble forward, face smudged, eyes lost beneath the tree lights. The fire roared back to life in the room below, banishing shadows with golden light. My hand cradled her small form, and I felt an inexplicable warmth. You're not alone, she whispered before vanishing as suddenly as they had. The journal fell from my hands, pages ruffling upon impact. In that moment, it was said, "Find the truth." The wind howled. I stumbled into a room filled with ornaments, and then her. Alive, in white dress, hair ablaze like the tree. She spoke of loss and love, of family secrets buried beneath this place. "Come to me," she urged from the threshold. In my arms, something shifted, as if I carried two souls, hers mine. The room was silent when I returned. The wind stilled as I placed the locket on the tree's root. My fingers slid into an envelope containing a note penned in blood. A love letter from my mother to my father, begging for forgiveness. Find your own way back. It was said that the tree held secrets and truth. Then there were those who lived beyond. With each step, the weight in my arms pulsed with life I'd never felt before. Her heartbeat harmonized with mine as we walked towards a house I recognized. The door opened to reveal a study. Rosemary's room, where a young mother sat amidst papers and books. She spoke of the child she bore, born not of flesh but love, the tree's power, and my own connection to it all these years. I stood before them, face aglow under moonlight. "You are not alone." My mother looked upon me, tears in her eyes. The world was silent as I turned to leave. In the woods behind our house lay my roots, my beginning. They were the heart of this family's tale. I descended through time and found myself back in my study when a note fell from the sky. Rosemary had left me an heirloom, a locket bearing her name. It was said that love could move beyond death if it held enough strength. I turned to my mother, who spoke with eyes wetted by tears, as she'd often been in dreams. In that room, we spoke of everything and nothing, the unspoken truth. In the tree's heart pulsed an energy that had birthed me, a love that could bridge worlds and time. A final note fell, carried on the wind like all others before it. I would carry both Rosemary's story and their love beyond life's gates. In my study now was an heirloom, and the locket seemed to glow in my fingers. The door slammed behind us, trapping us within the wood's heart. A final embrace with a mother I'd never known. We spoke of secrets, of a child born from our shared soul by the tree that had given me life. Love was powerful. It could move beyond death if it held enough strength.